Okay, started.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So welcome back, everyone. I hope Thanksgiving holidays went well for all of you and everyone is safe. So today I want to first give an update on where we are in terms of development. Well, get the update myself even. And then I want to talk about the things that we left off during the last meeting. So let's start with development. So the goal we were aiming towards, the milestone, was to do a demo where we show the create bucket feature and also where the bucket is provided to a pod and the pod can consume the bucket. So that's the demo we wanted to show. We added a few more constraints to the demo, which was to have the demo be a development milestone. That is, the demo is not just a smoke and mirrors demo, or it's not something that shows that it works, but rather the demo is going to be a result of having built all these features in as close to a production ready manner as possible. That is with testing, with automated integration tests, and also manual tests with some actual providers. So during this week, during the last week, the Thanksgiving week, there was some progress that was made. So for especially from people who are abroad, and also some people who had time here were able to contribute. So I want to catch up on what work was done last week, and then we'll go from there. So I'm going to open up this slide. So Sajan, I believe you worked on integration effort to run all the different services together and see if the integration goes well manually, correct?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. Like I still need some time to complete it.
Okay, so what were did you face any challenges or where are you at right
No,
now?
no challenges as yet. Like I'm still working, so
Okay,
it's
so
more time.
do you have the different services running independently?
Yeah, I have two of them running, but I still haven't tried sidecar yet.
Okay, so you
So
have the central controller and the CSI driver running?
yeah,
I see, okay. And you're saying you haven't started on the sidecar?
yeah, I haven't started on the sidecar yet.
Okay. Okay, so if you run into any issues or if you'd like to talk more about it, you can always reach out to me directly on Slack, or you can reach out on the SIG Storage Cozy channel where all of
Yeah,
us pitch in.
yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Okay, sounds good. And Srini, I believe you worked on some aspects of the...
Yeah, actually, not a whole lot of progress, but some progress. For the API repo, I added the basic controller logic in there. That PR is merged, and then there is the second PR, which to fix the kubeconfig consistency with the kubeconfig environment variable and the command line flag. It's a small PR. I pushed it a few minutes ago. The third thing I'm working is on the central controller. I started working both on the E2E. E2E framework looks good. I haven't submitted a PR because I first need to move the code. So in the process of moving the code, I started writing some unit tests for the basic bucket create logic. There were some issues that I had a one-on-one session with you to fix some of these, like, registering the CRDs manually and so on and so forth. But I still ran into some issues with the fake client. So currently I made some progress. So PR is shortly due. There are few issues. I added 3 tests and there is some issue with the cleanup logic. So if there is any buckets that bucket requests that are hanging in there between these tests, I'm running so some issues. So that I think I'm very close to submitting a PR for that. So that will add the basic bucket create along with unit test. Once that PR is good to go, I can start. But I will put out PRs for the ETE as well as for the Prow logic to build on. So we have a Prow job that is merged. I have submitted a Prow job for the controller. So for the API, my Prow job also, I made some changes because that Prow job was also doing post submit, which it is not really building a container, so we don't need a post submit. We only need a pre submit job for that. So for the
So
controller,
can you
we need.
explain to me what is a post submit and pre submit job? Is this like after the merge and before the merge kind of thing?
My understanding is pre-submit does basic unit testing and all the regular stuff like verify logic and all that. Post-submit builds the image, pushes the image, and tests the image out.
I see. Okay. And does it also deploy and then test, or just?
Yeah, deploy and test. So
Got it.
we don't need that for the API. API eventually will land somewhere, right? Or API is used as a library for now. I mean,
I see what you mean. Yeah.
Containers. So.
Yeah. Okay. No, this is good progress actually. A lot of progress last week. So most of the efforts right now seem to be around integration.
Right.
In terms of what is
there is quite a bit of still all the components needs to be moved into the official repo. We haven't started that, so that work is still very sizable.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Are there any outstanding PRs that need to be looked at?
I think we should start moving this week. We should concentrate on moving the code to the official repos.
Yeah. All right. So, and I believe you've already started with the central controller.
That's right.
Okay. And Sajjan, I believe you're working on moving the code for the sample provisioner.
Yeah, I'll be working with Rob to move the sample provision.
Got it. Is Rob on the call?
No, I don't think he's on the call.
Okay.
I didn't see him either. So.
Krish is on the call. Hey, Krish, you here?
Hello.
Hey. So, Krish, could you get started on moving the ephemeral CSI driver as well to the Kubernetes SIGs organization?
Yeah, sure. I'll look into starting that now.
And I've informed you about the repository name and where to push it and everything, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So we just need to coordinate with Rob then to get the sidecar controller moving. And Srini, weren't there two PRs that we were waiting on, or have they been merged?
I think pretty much all for the spec, almost all the PRs are merged right now. It's basically I'm the bottleneck right now. So there is one PR that is on the spec. I don't remember exactly what the status of that. Let me check.
If it's for adding one of us as maintainers, I think we can hold on that. I think Saad explained. Explained last week. That one's fine. We don't have to worry about it for now. It's not merged.
Yeah, there is one PR in the spec that, the CRDs require this special annotation because we are using case.io.
Right.
So that annotation is, when we generate, I don't know if there is any way on the types we can specify an annotation to generate that annotation. I haven't figured that out. If we can hard code it into the CRDs we generate and check it in, but if anybody wants to regenerate using the update code
Hello?
gen, we will have problem.
I think someone wants to
Which
say something.
which annotation are you talking about?
The annotation for, the CRDs are under kth.io, right?
Yeah.
We need that annotation to allow API approved with a PR.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Yeah, I said I'll show. I have an example.
See, it's the same annotation that I had problem with last time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pasting that here in the chat. This is the kind of that annotation we need to add if it is.
Right. API approved.kubernetes.io, and you give the PR.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, but I don't know if in the types.go, if we can specify something to generate this annotation.
I'm not sure.
You're using Cube Builder, right?
No.
Well, we're using
Sorry.
CodeGen. Yeah,
Code.
the one that KubeBuilder uses underneath.
Yeah.
It's all the same thing. It's just
With
go ahead.
Cube Builder itself uses customize, so there you could have a customized patch to add that annotation, even though controller tools does not generate it in the CRD YAML.
That's a good point, actually. A customize can add annotations. That's true. But can customers add annotations to the CRDs themselves?
Why not? I mean, not using the standard annotation feature, but using a JSON patch or one of the other patch mechanisms, you can really focus on one particular object, being the CRD in this case, and then apply a patch to the JSON object or the YAML object, whatever.
That's a very good point, actually. We should look into that, actually.
Yeah. So the other option I have, maybe I'm wrong, but in the update code gen where we call all this controller gen whatever, at the end of that script, I was tempted to add an SCD, so to fix the CRDs, which is a one-liner, but
I see. I think customize might be better here. It's idiomatic. People use it and people understand it quickly, I think. It's harder to make errors if we do that.
Okay.
I'll send you an example of just adding custom annotations. And we don't even need the JSON patch because we can apply this annotation to all the objects. It's fine. It's not going to, yeah. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward with customize. That should be a good solution in the midterm until API review is done and accepted.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing. So last week where we left off was we were talking about adding parameters to the protocol field. And we had a bunch of discussions around what to call them and how they would be useful and how they would be utilized. And the final conclusion was because we want to standardize this protocol field, as this is what will be sent down to the pod, the best solution right now is to keep the parameters field, if we had added them, would create an opaque map string field and can easily lead to an API that can be broken by different vendors satisfying the same protocol. So we wanted to keep a strict check on what fields go in here. So we went back to our previous model of how protocol was designed, where there wouldn't be this map string opaque field. So basically the conclusion of the discussions from last week or the week before was that we don't make any changes to the API and we leave it as it is. So then the question came up, as it is right now, the API looks good, but if we wanted to add new fields to the API, how do we go about it? I think that should be something we discuss and document. So any vendor for a particular protocol that wants to add a field into this protocol structure understands the clear path and the amount of time it takes to get that field into the protocol structure. That's one. The second thing I want to focus on, which maybe not today, but in the next meetings, would be what would it take for a new vendor to add their new protocol into this structure. So the two things that I want to get cleared up is how to add new fields to existing APIs or existing protocols, and how to add entirely new protocols. So this is the conclusion that we left off with 2 weeks ago. So I'm going to start with this question, which is how do we add a new protocol to the API? Is Saad or Ben around?
I'm here. Ben's here.
Hey, Ben. So I don't know if you remember this, but this is where we left off on the 19th. This is an open question. What should that review process look like? Do they come and submit a KEP to us, or do you think it should be an issue that's just an issue that's added, or come and kind of present here?
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the sort of the paperwork half of how do you get one added? Because I was going to say that the process is going to be that you're going to have to propose a change to wherever the CRD definition is for, I guess, bucket class, to define the new struct in that union for protocol, and yeah, there will need to be a review process, and we'll need, but I mean, like.
No, I'm more. No, my question is more along the lines of guidelines around what we'll approve and what we want.
Yeah, and the timelines for that, which seem relevant to me. Like
that
if someone shows up and says, "Hey, I just invented a new bucket protocol. I want to support it," we could be like, "Okay," assuming that it doesn't look crazy and that we think people will actually use it, then there will be like at least a one release delay, and it'll go through an alpha, beta, GA kind of a cycle. And yeah, I don't know if we want to. I don't know if there's an alternative to like a KEP for a process for proposing it, but yeah, we would want to figure out what the right level of discussion is. But yeah, I think we need to decide for ourselves, like, under what circumstances would we say no to a proposal, right? If someone came up and said, "Hey, I want to propose some new protocol," and we're like, you know what, this looks like someone's science project that's never going to go anywhere, and we don't want to include it in the API, we would need a way to objectively determine that.
How do we review it, right? It's probably proprietary. They tell us whatever they want, then how do we even know it's true or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tricky because, I mean, it's one thing if it's like an IETF standard protocol or something they can point to, here's where we, the community sort of agreed that this is a standard, versus someone's proprietary protocol that they say, yeah, I have a product that implements this. I guess a good sort of minimum bar would be like, is there a working product that implements it that people can use? Because if someone clears that bar, then it's like, why wouldn't we say yes to that?
Well, I don't know if that'll even do, because I could build a working product that nobody uses.
Yeah, I can just have a website that's a product.
Yeah.
Trust me or not.
Well, but I mean, I think we can tell the difference between like an actual product.
Yeah, but leaving it up to the discretion of some reviewer is not going to be fair, I would rather have clear-cut guidelines, like some standard measure, and I'm open to having it such that we can update the standard as we go along.
Should we provide some tests? Like they have to pass some
something like that.
Or something. This way, at least we know you can pass test.
It could be something like some sort of adoption. It could be one parameter. Or the best way would be if there is some mechanism to allow them to do their own protocols their own way without affecting the API, that's even better. So we will still standardize for S3, GCS, and Azure, But if they
Well,
want,
hold on. This was a critical point from, I guess, the meeting, was it 2 weeks ago at this point, or a week and a half ago, because we didn't really meet last week. The argument was there's already a way to use your object bucket protocol without modifying our API, and it exists right now, which is you just do it inside the pod and you don't use cozy, right? So the question is does it make sense to have like a backdoor mechanism in cozy to have some sort of a non-standardized bucket support? And I would say probably not. Like, you already have a way to just talk directly from your pod to the object store.
Would cozy add any value if we had this backdoor mechanism, is basically what you're asking, and I guess not.
Yes, yeah, exactly. It would not. So we could just say, look, until you're ready to propose a proper protocol to the bucket class and our downward facing API, just stay out of cozy altogether. And then when you're ready to clear that bar, if you have a product, people are using it, you have a stable protocol, you want to put it in cozy, then we'll look at your request and integrate it.
See, the other thing is small shops would want to legitimize their protocol by becoming part of Kubernetes. So we have to somehow set a clear a guideline or a clear standard on what we allow.
Yeah, I think we would want to err on the side of too few rather than too many protocols.
True.
Because, yeah, I mean, the whole point is as Saad was saying, like, we don't want to be in a world where there's 17 different object protocols. That doesn't benefit anybody, right? Like the goal is to gradually coalesce them into a less number.
I mean, again, but I don't want to, in that sense, I don't want to take it too far either, because sometimes allowing the market to play itself out and then, collapse and converge is better. So I don't want to like force, and I like the idea of having fewer rather than more, but I don't want to enforce it. I want to be very strict on what we allow, but I don't want to have it as a guideline or a guiding philosophy for us. And we shouldn't dictate anywhere that we think there shouldn't be too many protocols or anything.
But then, can't you look at the history? Because the spec today specifies S3, Azure, and the Google Object Storage Protocol. Why those three? Why not Swift? And I don't know myself, but if there is some bar that is put, then the existing protocols need to pass that bar as well, of course. And there should be some rationale as to why those three were chosen.
True.
Isn't it just another point of view, doesn't have to come from the workload that uses like a generic open source project that uses that protocol? Otherwise, I mean, if you're just a provider that also writes the application, then you don't need any standards around it that much. But if you really want to provide a new protocol with a new set of features and capabilities to the community, then first let's see that the community is using it. Like, there's open source projects that use that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we have an advantage where you don't have to be integrated with cozy for things to work. So we can try to let the horse go first and have the cart come after it. And we say, the horse is, there are Kubernetes workloads using this object protocol today, and they just aren't using cozy. And if that is the case, and we're like, okay, I guess the argument I would make in favor of making it easier to add more things is it actually doesn't cost us very much, right? It's just it's one extra struct definition in the bucket class and in the downward facing API, and maybe some validation logic, which would have to be defined at the time that the fields were proposed. Right. And there's no maintenance burden other than just having that code lying around. Like, it's not gonna be a lot of bugs filed against this thing. It's not like there's a lot of complex logic executing. It's just, there's a struct definition and there's some validators. So
right.
It doesn't, if we make the wrong decision and let something in that turns out to be something nobody uses, it's not a huge downside. I just think that we would want to, you know, if we put our thumb on either side of the scale, it would be towards less.
Yeah.
Just because we are trying to standardize object storage protocols and
Right, so that new like projects can know what to do, right? When they come to that problem, then.
Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, the way I would look at it is we could say, look, you know, maybe S3 is the best protocol, and we don't ever need anything better than that, which I'm not saying. But like, let's say you take that point of view and like, okay, if I want to build a product, I will just implement the storage implementation that speaks S3, and I will write a cozy driver for it, and everyone will be able to use it because S3 is already a supported protocol, and I'm done. And like, that's a better outcome than like someone just inventing a whole new protocol just because they think they can do better than S3.
Or what if they actually innovate and do something better than S3 and they're not able to, you know, we're holding them back. I don't want to.
That's why I was saying like we're not holding them back. Like if they really do have the next best protocol, like they should be able to implement that and prove it to the world without, or at least step one of that, prove it to the world, you know, get some implementation out there before they have to get something in cozy. I don't think we're really holding them back more than, you know, having to do basic.
I mean, in terms of working with
concepts,
customers, the first question they'll ask is this cozy compatible? I mean, they do that with CSI all the time.
Well, you know what? Just about every protocol, just about every storage or object storage implementation in the world speaks both their protocol of choice and S3, right?
Or just S3, yeah.
That seems to be a thing. So if they want to say, yeah, we're cozy compliant, they can implement the S3 bit of it and the cozy bit of it.
So
and
we're giving Amazon an unfair advantage is what I'm saying. So
yeah, and I don't want to do that. I'm just saying like that's how it's shaken out so far, and it doesn't seem to be hurting anybody.
Well, but we don't want to, you know, so we don't
But there's three major protocols. So
right.
It's not that we're saying, well, you know, S3 is the only thing. Like,
I mean, Google Cloud.
You can add Swift into the pile maybe, and then, you know, what else would you add now?
It doesn't have to be S3. Like you could declare cozy compatibility by implementing any of the existing protocols that cozy supports. And the advantage there is presumably the workloads are being coded to what we support. So like by supporting an existing protocol, you automatically have compatibility with existing workloads. Every time you add a new protocol, there are 0 workloads that support it because it's new. So by definition, like you're implementing something that nobody supports, and then you're trying to.
In that case, is there a need to add new protocols? You're saying there's just no need to add new protocols.
No, I'm saying that like we should err on the side of too few, but like there will be something better than S3 will come along if it hasn't already, and maybe it has already, and we don't want to say like S3 is the end, right? Because we know it isn't. We know we can do better, but like that doesn't mean we need 17 different ones. I guess that's what I'm saying. Like,
agreed.
And if somebody wants to
what
add
is the guideline,
like a
right?
database,
And someone
like
wants to add a new protocol, how we are saying yes or no, right? We can't.
I think what we would want to do is force them to demonstrate that like serious people are using it, and it's not a science project. I don't know how to say it more clearly than that, but like
I think that's a good way to put it. I think if there is some sort of adoption in an enterprise situation, and I think we should define that a little clearly. So we could say an enterprise is defined as an organization with more than say 200 employees or something. I don't know. There's a specific definition for it. We can look it up. And we can say if at least 2 enterprises have adopted this verifiably, then yeah.
I got a question too. So far there is nothing better than S3, but just for S3, there are multiple versions. So some data stores, for instance, support versioning, and some others don't, and all. And are we sure that just the version that I see here, protocol name S3 version, can capture those subtle differences?
Yeah, I'm actually really not a favor of the version field in here. I think we should get rid of it, but because I think it leads to exactly this confusion. There are different versions of the S3 protocol, like S3 v2 and S3 v4, and we should be explicit about which one we're talking about. But we're not talking about subtle iterations that Amazon makes in their SDK and the features they support. We're talking about like major revisions to the S3 authentication protocol, of which there have been 3 so far, right? Because we're on S3 v4.
But some vendors sometimes they strictly support or specific syntax, but they don't support, for instance, versioning, which is a major feature. And when you write an application, you have to be aware of this. I mean, the semantics of accessing a bucket are very different whether you use a version bucket or a non-version bucket.
Yeah,
so you see what I mean? I think the first.
S3, so
yeah.
we need to be concrete about these things. But yes, I agree that inside the S3 protocol,
we have a signature version.
Like there needs to. Well, I would argue against just having a version, but instead maybe having enumerated capabilities that actually matter to workloads.
No, we're calling it signature version. We have that. So we have that.
Well, but it sounded like the speaker was saying there was something more subtle than that.
For instance, the first Minayo versions, if I'm not mistaken, like 2-3 years ago, did not support versioning. So as an application, you want to know that.
So so you're not saying about knowing it. You're saying that you want to specify your workload to require this.
No, what I mean
to signal that your code requires it, because if you would detect it in your code, you could have decided what to do based on the response. But if you're saying that you want to specify it in the protocol for the bucket request in some way, right?
But yeah, the question is, does the workload need to know explicitly about some feature that the provider does or does not have?
So if a workload is written to assume something, right, that would be a case.
Yeah.
So if I have,
if it's something that can't be like worked out in band with negotiation and you just have to know it a priori, then yeah, that would be an appropriate thing to stick in the protocol field alongside all the other S3 fields. And I think we should go over those one by one as we become aware of them.
Yeah.
Because we want to take that very seriously. But I don't want to just try to sweep it all under like, yeah, there's going to be a version number and that's going to solve everyone's problem.
No, that's fair.
Yeah.
Because you can have legit new vendors in the market that offer an amazing product, for instance, which don't support, for instance, versioning, but and still are very interesting for some other applications.
Well, but what matters from a cozy perspective is we care about portability of the application. So if an application that was written for other flavors of S3 can run against this new provider, then you're golden. If they can't, then you really aren't implementing S3.
Yeah. So Minayo didn't support, a few years ago, Minayo didn't support allowing you to specify a version, but it supported S3 v4. It just didn't have the option to go back to the older version. It was still a standard version of S3. It just didn't allow you to choose between the two while creating a bucket. And even now, the client allows you to choose a version only for compatibility reasons with the actual S3. Minayo, the server itself only talks the v4 version.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure everyone only talks. Well, I don't know. V4 seems to have really taken hold. What my question is what will it look like when V5 comes along? If, there will be some sort of a migration period, and then I don't know what we'll do in the bucket class, because we'll have to say, okay, for workloads that only speak V4, here's what you need to know. But if you also support V5, here's the additional details you need to know.
But what you're saying basically, if, for instance, an application is expecting an S3 compatible storage which understand S3 select, for instance, which is an extension for doing big data. It's up to the application to basically to detect if the storage does actually support S3 select, or will it be the role of Cozy to express this.
If it's an extension that multiple implementations support and that you can't discover it in band, then yeah, we would want to add that as a field.
There is always a
This
a
is what we
way to
discussed a
detect.
week and a half ago. Was if it's something that like is widely supported, then we would consider adding it. If it's just like a, one or two vendors have done something weird, you can have a bucket class parameter that allows you to, as the human, look at the bucket class and say, oh, I see that it supports this, and I will use this bucket class for my pod, knowing that I'm going to get the feature, but there wouldn't be a programmatic way to consume it initially, right?
So the thing is, S3 select first of all is a feature of the provider rather than of the S3 protocol itself.
Yeah.
And S3 select is again is not a part of the bucket workflow really. S3 select allows you to, for those of you who don't know, S3 select allows you to run filters. I call it filters on the data set within S3. So if you have a whole bunch of files in certain formats like CSV, Parquet, or ORC, you can run like a distributed grep on it.
But the question is, if a provider doesn't support it, is there a fallback, or you just?
It's not a part of the S3 API.
Right. But what I'm saying is, like, let's say we left this out, and somebody wrote a workload that depended on it, and it ran fine when they actually ran against Amazon. But then when they moved to a different cloud that still had S3, but it wasn't Amazon, it was something else that purported to be S3 that didn't support it. Would they be totally out of luck if they assumed this functionality was there and it in fact wasn't?
No, if we model it, then there would be a problem. If we didn't model it, then it's up to the workload application writer to ensure that the new provider has it. If we start modeling it and have a field for S3 select, I mean, who is to say the new workload, the new vendor, the second vendor is going to even understand that field or support it? It'll only work.
I think there's Spark, there's an implementation, optional implementation, but I'm not sure if it's like dynamic in the code versus being like a build time kind of configuration. I'm not sure. We can take a look, but if that's the kind of
if it's the kind of thing that other implementations of S3 start to support, and it becomes the kind of thing that a workload wants to be able to dynamically determine if it's there or not, yeah, that would be a good candidate for adding it to the S3 protocol. If Amazon's the only company that supports it, then it's like, okay, you should know if you're running on Amazon or not, and whether you can use this feature or not.
Here's the thing: Amazon and MinIO support it, and Ceph doesn't as of now, but MinIO supports it with a few disclaimers basically. So it only supports it for CSV format and at this point. So I'm kind of wary of modeling this because we'll end up in situations like what I said, trying to deal.
It will be supported. I mean, it will surely be supported by all providers at some point, right?
S3 select?
Yeah, of course. Like versioning and all. I mean, this is converging. It's converge.
Not a part of the bucket API is what I'm saying. So S3 select has nothing to do with a bucket.
It's part of S3. It's part of object API. It's an object interface in S3.
It's a provider interface. It's not an object interface. It's not on the objects. It's about how you consume the objects, but it's not the provisioning of a bucket.
Yeah, but it matters for workload portability, right? If the workload depends on it, you need to know, can I go to another cloud and will my workload still work? Right? It seems relevant. And so to agree with you, Sid, we would not want to include it unless we had a very precise definition of what it was.
Yeah.
And so that providers could reliably flag whether they supported it or not. And of course, the default is not. So if the provider never heard of it, you say, of course I don't support that. I don't know what that is. And that's fine. So, this is a standard thing that this particular provider doesn't have. And so we have a clear way of communicating that to workloads if they care.
Mm-hmm.
But like the bar for including something like that is multiple vendors would have to have made interoperable implementations, and when workloads would have to, be interested in using it and being portable at the same time. and then we'd say, yeah, that's a good candidate for including a formal capability bit.
And we'll need it anyway because, for example, Amazon itself in S3 Outpost doesn't support S3 Select.
There you go.
Well,
Yeah.
in the short term,
So-
we can just leave it out altogether and say it's up to you to figure out whether this is available or not.
Right.
Right. But if it becomes widespread enough that people really do need this, then yeah, we would add it, and the ones that supported it would declare that they supported it, and the ones that didn't would just not do anything.
I mean, so in this case, and I don't know if this is even relevant for all the other protocols, but all the other features that we'll deal with, but the limiting factor for S3 Select is you need to have a lot of machines in the backend that have a lot of compute that can actually do this filtering. And things like Outpost and Snowball, Snowball's where they ship you the suitcase with the Amazon Cloud in it, they don't have the compute required to do stuff like this. So it's not going to become ubiquitous. However, there can be other features other than S3 Select that we'll have to add in there, like encryption. And that's supported by all the different vendors, and today we don't model that.
Yeah, and there's others like object lock.
Object locking, yeah.
Well,
That's the
encryption
worm
encryption
bucket.
is a can of worms. I was going to say we haven't solved that on the CSI side either.
Well, we just have to model it here. Basically, there are three ways to do encryption, and the hardest one is simply just having some sort of key provider like a HashiCorp Vault, and the configuration would require just turning on encryption and then pointing to the key store. Yeah, so yeah, I think it would be easier here compared to CSI to support encryption, but we'll get to it when in the future.
Yeah,
I still
let's
want
not
to
try to boil the ocean, guys. There is that goal for the demo, and just adding more complexity to the heap is not going to bring us any further.
Leave encryption out until later. That's my advice.
Yeah, agreed.
It is a can of worms.
One thing I like that raised my attention, I think Sid, you said so a while ago about customers and basically an RFP asking, is this cozy compatible? We need to watch out that such questions do not arise. The reason being, unlike CSI, a customer can say, is a CSI compatible? Yes, no, and then they mean either file or block. In the case of cozy, the question should be, is this cozy provisioning for the S3 protocol compatible? Because if a vendor has an implementation for the Azure protocol, but his backend doesn't support the S3 one, and yet the customer has an S3 application, then if the question is it cozy compatible, then the answer is yes, but will the customer's application work with it? Not at all.
I see what you're saying. So, I mean, so application to bucket protocol, as far as we're concerned, that's opaque to us. So does the applications work with whatever bucket it's asked for? Again, that's a concern for the admin who's provisioning, the bucket for the workload.
Yeah,
However, go ahead.
I was going to say that there's two pieces of value that we're providing. One is basic automation around bucket creation and deletion and lifecycle management, which doesn't exist today. And that's valuable regardless of what protocol you're using. And then there is the other piece of value is standardized protocols, such that if you have a workload that's coded to S3 and it works in one cloud, you can move it to another cloud as long as that cloud has a bucket class that supports the S3 protocol or Azure or whatever. So the first half of it still matters. Even if you're inventing a new protocol, the customer might be interested in tweaking their application to speak a new protocol if they know that they're getting the first piece of value, which is bucket life cycle automation.
I think his question is more along the lines of, if I have a provider, say Ceph, and Ceph supports S3 and Swift, and the vendor for Ceph might say, hey, look, to their customers, we're cozy compatible, but their customers might be expecting a Swift implementation, whereas even though they're cozy compatible, they're not Ceph's S3 versions cozy compatible. They're Ceph's Swift version cozy compatible.
Yes.
So
So
What I'm
which
saying
protocols you
is-
support does matter, but just supporting Cozy
Yes.
at all is better than not supporting it.
Yeah. And the other thing is, customers generally do not understand, even as of today, most customers that, at least we deal with at Minayo, do not understand what CSI is. And they just ask the question, like, it's probably the purchasing manager, whoever that is, director or senior director or someone who really has not been in, writing code or dealing with any of these things at the same level as an engineer, would just ask the question, is this CSI compatible? They're looking at a list of features between different vendors, and they just ask that question. So
Yeah, because he saw it in a blog article he read that day.
Yeah.
If my point is, and this is really marketing more than anything else, if one says I am CSI compatible, then as a consumer of that product, there's some certain things you can reasonably expect from that product. As in, it can give me a file system volume, and then I use it. Cozy compatible doesn't give you any guarantees whatsoever.
Not true. So we guarantee on the protocol that we specify, and also we guarantee on the fields that we model right here.
Yes, sure. But I mean, again, from an RFP point of view, checkboxes, Cozy compatible doesn't say anything.
No, I'll tell
It
you why
says
it
that the
does.
vendor implements the Cozy interfaces for
No,
a
it
particular
doesn't.
protocol.
No, that's not true. So if you think about it, the vendor. So to come back to what you're asking, there's two different fields here. If you look at the bucket class right in the middle of the slide that I'm showing, there's a provisioner and there's a protocol. So we model both. You could say you're Cozy compatible, but that problem exists with CSI too. You could say I'm CSI compatible, but some applications need SSDs or NVMEs or higher IOPS, or networked volumes. Like
Or they need raw blocks, and your CSI plugin doesn't have raw blocks.
Right. So Cozy compatible would be enough, because we model both. And let's say they try to use a protocol that doesn't exist here. The bucket creation would fail and the workload would not be able to start. So, this is not going to lead to a silent failure in the application where they go to production and suddenly figure out that something is wrong. They would be able to figure it out during deploy time itself. So I believe Cozy compatible is good enough.
So let me take a step back and just wondering, I know the technical implications, etc. I'm wondering about how do we want to put this in the field? Do we want people to request Cozy compatibility, or do we want people to request, for example, Cozy/S3 compatibility, Cozy/Azure Blob compatibility, Cozy/Google whatever compatibility?
The latter.
Okay, and then we need to really stress that otherwise Cozy compatibility will be out there, indeed, in blogs, in marketing material, in I don't know what, and it will not have any substantial meaning.
I don't know if it needs to be the latter, to be honest.
All right. My intuition is that what will happen is S3 will become like the minimum bar that everyone's going to support, and then hopefully you have better options too. But like what it will end up meaning is Cozy plus S3 is the minimum bar.
No, Cozy compatible does not mean.
But Azure will not implement S3.
No. So it's like saying CSI compatible means I can provision every kind of CSI volume. No. So it doesn't have to be. Cozy compatible means you support any one of the different providers that you have. I don't think we need to say Cozy S3 compatible. I think that's going too far, and it only adds noise rather than information. And the third thing is,
I'm saying that, not that you would say it out loud, but like what it will come to mean in practice is when you say Cozy compatible, you mean, does it do Cozy and does it do S3? And if so, my app is good because that's the lowest common denominator. And yeah, if you can do better, that's better. But no one's going to write an application that doesn't support S3.
The decision making happens like this provider supports the S3 protocol. Now, does it work with Cozy? So the protocol itself is the first decision, like the first constraint, and then comes Cozy. Nobody is going to evaluate, a driver first or Cozy compatibility first, then see if it supports the protocol. It's the other way around, because the requirement is driven by the application rather than by Cozy compatibility.
That's a good
Well,
point.
but it's the inverse with CSI.
Well, the difference is with CSI, your application doesn't need to know anything other than am I getting a file system or a raw block device.
Exactly.
And here it's unavoidable that you have to know more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's the nature of block storage. We're not going to escape this trap. Like it's just because of how block storage is, we can't magically install a layer that makes this not matter. Like it just matters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unless we come up with our own protocol. And
Oh no.
No.
Let's standardize a new standard.
There's a comic about that from XKCD.
XKCD, yeah. So we still haven't gotten into how do we add a new protocol?
I have a related question. In the bucket request, the protocol field is a string, right? It's not an object like.
True.
So so what we're saying is that the bucket the workload can only request the name basically, and that whenever and later when we come to specify different variants or capabilities like we discussed earlier, how would we add it?
I think we moved away from this. I think I just haven't updated this. We just need the bucket class name. We don't need these other two parameters here.
I think the one thing was for specifying the protocol was that we want to assert in some way. So I don't know if it's relevant, but I think that was why.
Well, no, if let's say there was an S3v5 in addition to S3v4 that was substantively different, you would just end up with two bucket classes, and then the bucket request would have to pick which bucket class it wanted to point to. I think.
Yeah, so I just remember that the reason it was added, the protocol was added to the bucket request was to declaratively specify by the workload which protocol it expects to get, so that it's hard-coded into the workload definition. I'm expecting S3 versus I'm expecting blob, right? And not just rely on the bucket class, which is not, something that necessarily if I migrate the workload, I'm going to end up with the same bucket classes.
And in this case, you can't have a default bucket class similar to how you can have a default storage class in Kubernetes.
No, but say you have like a name, like a bucket class called default, right? So.
I mean, we have a default bucket class per protocol.
Yeah, but then you need to be able to specify the protocol in the bucket request.
No, fair point. Yeah.
I have to drop.
Yeah, it's almost time up. Thank you, everyone. I think we should conclude at this point and continue the discussion on Thursday. I think we've started a good discussion. We should explore next week. One, how do we add a new protocol? And yeah, that's the main thing. Is there any other questions anyone had? Anything else you want to keep on the agenda for next week?
I think also maybe capabilities, like we discussed. So how do we add capabilities in the same way that we? Not just protocols.
True. Yeah, because some protocols support encryption, some don't.
Yep. And we have a model we can follow there with CSI for capabilities that I think will work fine here. We just need to talk it over.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll keep that on the agenda for next week. Good talk today. Sorry, not next week, for Thursday. Good talk today, and see you all on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.